Hello and welcome to the channel. Today's video is the first of a two-part series, and this video is on camera setting basics. The whole series is on just camera basics with gear and settings. So let's jump right into it. I'm going to start with shutter speed. So a higher shutter speed captures movement sharply, but there's also less light let in. So a lot of sports photographers will shoot at 1,000th of a second or 4,000th of a second, but they have to have fast glass, which I'll cover later in the video. In contrary, a lower shutter speed blurs action, but it lets more light in. So if you're going to take pictures of stars, you're going to do a very low shutter speed, such as maybe a 30th of a second or a 15th or even longer. And a high shutter speed is anywhere from about 1/400th of a second to 1/4000th of a second, or other cameras have higher. That's 1/4000th is the highest I can go on my camera. And then a low shutter speed, which has camera we'll see if you have camera shake, is if like your photo's a little blurry because your body is always moving. Even if you're still, you're always shaking because that's just how our bodies are. And that's anywhere from 1/40th of a second to 30 seconds, and also to bulb, which you manually choose how long your sensor is receiving light. Alright, let's move on to aperture, if my computer will let me. Alright, aperture, also known as f-stop, adjusts your depth of field and also the amount of light that reaches your sensor. So for like talking about lenses, I know that'll be my next video, but well, you want a lens that has a low aperture, anywhere from a 1.4 to a 2.8. This 24mm, half the reason why I got it was because of the aperture was so wide that I could let more light in and do nice night shots. So a lower aperture lets in a lot of light, thus getting the name as fast glass. That's what a lot of sports photographers, as I said earlier in the video, will use. The lenses will be more expensive if they have faster because camera companies can charge that much. So if you're getting lenses like your kit lens, or like my 75 to 300, that's a 5.6, which isn't that great for shooting or with a high shutter speed. So if you're planning on doing a lot of nature photography, you'd want a nice fast telephoto lens. But anyway, back on topic. It also has wider apertures also have a shallow depth of field, which if you want to like single out a subject, or you want to do product photography, that's great. And also creates bokeh, which is the out of focus lights that are very popular on a lot of photo sharing apps. A higher shutter speed lets less light in, yet it is better if you want to let most of your picture be in focus. This is great when you want to do nature. Well, if you want to do nature photography, that's also good with that, but also landscape, because you can see a lot of, like, if you're taking pictures of mountains, you'd want to turn your shutter speed, you'd actually want your shutter speed lower so you can let more light in, and that's also more on in the video with ISO. But a high f-stop is anywhere from 5.6 to 22 f. I normally keep my aperture at a 1 or 2.8 on this because that's as high as it goes, and I like taking those like photos that you can single stuff out. But if I'm gonna be taking landscapes with either my telephoto or my kit lens, I'd keep it at a 5.6, which is a fairly good all-around aperture. Now with ISO, ISO is the component that wraps everything together. So ISO is another tool that lets you tinker with the amount of light that reaches your sensor. The lower the ISO, the better, because a higher ISO has more noise, which noise it's kind of hard to explain, but it just doesn't make your photo look as good. The higher your ISO, the more light is allowed into your sensor, which when you increase the sensitivity of a sensor, it gets noisy. As well with film cameras, if you have a 400 ISO roll of film, that your photos will be grainy because there's just something that goes on. I have a picture right here now that shows you what exactly it looks like, but it's bad. It adds a weird texture to your photos. If you're trying to take star pictures and you're trying to zoom in, unless you have a camera that specifically has software that will eliminate those, a lot of time, red dots, you're gonna have to try to keep your ISO down to 100. I normally keep my ISO to 100 if I'm shooting in broad daylight, but if it's sunset or after that, I keep it from a 200 ISO to up to 800. I try not to push it to 64,000 ISO because that's when the graininess and everything just doesn't look that great. Yeah, so this is the end of Camera Basics Part 1. I hope you learned a bit from this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks so much.